accent like his. Also, his wife is here, Belinda Ross. And Belinda, would you like to stand up? Thanks for coming from Melbourne. We have a very special guest in the audience, Peter Ewing, our district governor, is here to make a presentation. And we're especially honored with Minnie Liss and Martha Sunbeam, and they're here for the presentation, and Fred obviously is one of our members. But also I wanted to mention that Martha is a visiting Rotarian at the University Hills Club, so we're happy to have you. The University Hills Club is also making a big event today. We have Jerry Reagan with us, and he's with the University Hills Club as a visiting Rotarian, and he brought along a guest, Sig Rosfeld, and they're in the oil and gas business. Thank you so much for coming. We have a prospective new member, Charlene Dowsett, is with Craig McNeil, and she is a business consultant. Sharon? Charlene? Did I get all today? I don't want to leave anybody out. We have some announcements. Felicia Muftick has had knee replacement surgery. She's recovering quite nicely, and she is at St. Luke's Presbyterian. I know that she's doing well. We don't want you to forget about Guest Day, which is next week on Thursday, May the 21st. All prospective new members are complimentary guests of the club. Also, don't forget about the 50% reduction initiation fee for all new member applications, and this continues through June the 30th. As always, be sure to let the Rotary office know if you're bringing a guest. That helps out tremendously. Fellowships are May the 28th, and reservations are now open to pick yours up before the spots fill up. You can register at DACDB under Club Calendar and by clicking on the link in the dedicated blast that was sent yesterday. Nominations for Rotarian of the Year and the new Rotarian of the Year are due June the 1st. Don't forget to take care of that. One last announcement, Rotary Connect is sponsored by Lonnie Langton with Action Coach. This is going to be May the 26th from 5:30 to 7:30 at Hacienda, Colorado on the corner of I-25 in Colorado. So enjoy that and enjoy your day. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Nancy. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our District 5450 Governor, Dr. Peter Ewing. He has brought some significant hardware today, and we just got through, as you know, with a wonderful district conference, and he has some announcements related to that. Peter?
Well, let me start with a really heavy one first.
Thank you. Could I get some silverware?
So this is the Helping Hands Award, which is sponsored by the Brush Rotary Club. Brush sends their regrets that they couldn't be here to deliver this in person. Concern for children who are struggling to overcome obstacles. The Brush Rotary Club create the Helping Hands Award, which honors a project that targets at-risk and special needs population. This year's winner is the Denver Rotary Club, their foundation for their long-standing Denver Kids Project. Denver Kids Incorporated provides academic and social support for Denver public school students who are struggling with circumstances that put them at risk of not completing high school. The organization was founded by the Denver Rotary Club and the Denver Public Schools over 70 years ago, and together they have provided the opportunity of one-on-one educational support and counseling to thousands of the students. Thank you to the Denver Rotary Club for your support of at-risk children, and congratulations on the Helping Hands Award. The next award is the Vocational Service Award. The annual Vocational Service Award is proudly sponsored by Wells Fargo Banks. It recognizes the club which has done the most to stimulate vocational service in its community, and
It's
with
a constant,
students
it's a
attending
fixed.
the Career
So that's
Education
this is
Center
live.
Magnet School. The CEC students
I
pursue
want to see if
diverse
it's around.
areas of study and vocation in much needed technical fields. For their support of the Career Education Magnet School. The next award is the Roary Awareness Award. Rotarians do great work, but they don't always seek credit because they believe more in service and not publicity. Continued and increasing Rotary awareness is required for Rotary to continue to thrive and be able to do all the great works we do. The Branch Rickey Award, and maybe some of you who were at district conference noticed that we called it the Branch Hickey Award. The Branch Rickey Award is nationally prestigious and coveted honor that recognizes professionals in Major League Baseball for their exceptional community service and service above self. The public relations campaign for this event focuses on several efforts to raise awareness of Rotary, and this year the PR public relations campaign touched over 500,000 people. Rotary of Denver Rotary was prominently mentioned, and the baseball fans themselves were able to vote for the awardee for the first time. Thank you, Denver, for getting Denver Rotary, for getting the word out about what it is we do as Rotary and Rotarians. And congratulations to Denver Rotary Club. And finally, I'd just like to mention, this was an award that was delivered at district conference. Many of you were not there. It was a district governor's discretionary award. Your club had imagination and commitment to raising the Every Rotarian Every Year percentage in a club. That was one of my goals, a significant increase in Every Rotarian Every Year donating to the Rotary Foundation. You came up with this fantastic idea, Don Lewis particularly. Where are you, Don?
Over here, sir.
Would you? Congratulations, Don. So let's give Don a hand. But the idea was to challenge the San Diego Rotary Club for a period of time, ending with the Denver Broncos San Diego Chargers football game in October. And not only did the Broncos beat San Diego, but this club trounced the San Diego Rotary Club with a significant increase in your EREY percentage. And for that significant event and the imagination that it took to do this and the hard work, you were awarded a district discretionary award for that challenge. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Peter, and you should all know that he's traveling around to a lot of clubs to give away these awards, but it was a wonderful district conference this year in Keystone. For those of you who attended, I'm sure you enjoyed some fantastic speakers, as always. So, thank you, Peter. And now at this time, speaking of Don Lewis, he is the Rotary Foundation Support Committee Chair, and he is with us today with some special guests. Don?
Yes. Thank you, President Jim. And here comes our special guest now. Yes. Looking good. Now, let me guess. You two gentlemen are superheroes.
Not exactly.
You needn't be modest.
Oh, we're not. We're super duper heroes.
Well, let me try another guess. You have TRF blazoned on your outfit. That must stand for the Rotary Foundation.
That is correct, but you can just call me Turf.
And your TRCF would stand for the Denver Rotary Club Foundation?
That's all true, but you could call me Dr. Cuff.
Dr. Cut?
Cuff. There's no U. Well, there's a U, but there's no U on the U.
Foundation funds brick by brick and leaps and bounds. And that's a tall order. Which one of you guys is the sidekick?
Well, there isn't a sidekick. We're co-equal partners in our fight for education,
Kerpow!
youth, clean water,
Right.
and disease prevention,
Whack!
and peace.
With our friends on the Denver Rotary Club's World Community Service Committee, we're doing good throughout the globe.
That's right. We're world-class do-gooders. For example, we're part of a new global grant to build and drill new water wells and recondition old wells in Burkina Faso, Africa. We turned $4,000 from DRCF into $107,000 through your Global Grants program.
And we're sponsoring a girls' education and counseling program targeting the Roma population in Bosnia.
Meanwhile, we're providing books, educational supplies, and teachers to poor communities in Guatemala.
In partnership with Doug Jackson's Project Cure, we've delivered over $500,000 of medical furnishings and supplies to the Red Cross Hospital in Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
And don't forget that we're educating teachers in sign language at the King George School for the Deaf in Zimbabwe.
And we're participating in a global grant for latrine and washing stations in rural Togo.
And speaking of Togo, we're also helping there with 3 youth summer camps focused on science education, girls empowerment, and adventure programs for handicapped kids.
Most recently, we've been vitally involved with the Shelter Box campaign to help out the devastated residents of Nepal following the horrific earthquakes.
And we barely scratched the surface.
TRF have brought this close to worldwide eradication of polio with the help of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And I could go on and on and on.
But we'd be remiss if we didn't tell you what I, DRCF, am doing at the local level.
This year's DRCF grant, $120,000 to Denver Kids, supports the lives of over 1,000 DPS students. You met a proud group of high school graduating Denver kids just a couple weeks ago.
And I am also sponsoring the Rotary College Counseling Initiative, providing counseling and financial resources for our Denver kids, scholarship recipients, and DCIS students.
And of course, there are the marvelous UMB Rotary High School Scholarship and Achievement Awards.
And let's not forget Junior Achievement and the Scholastic Art Awards program.
DRCF is also thrilled to help out with Shining Stars, which provides activities for children and young adults with cancer at the Shining Stars Winter Games in Aspen.
In closing, Turf, why don't you remind the folks of the motto we superheroes live by?
Selfish above serf.
I think that's supposed to be service above self.
Isn't that what I said?
By the way, what are your names in real life before you assume the superhero roles?
I'm Kent Clark.
And I'm Batty Bilson.
And we're both mild-mannered retired judges right here in Metropolis.
Thank you for joining us today.
the
you,
computer.
Judge Bob Popelke and Larry Boning, and all of you that are contributors to the Rotary Foundation and the Denver Rotary Club Foundation. My ask today is that you become superheroes as well, supporting both foundations as two of your most important charities of choice. You can begin that today by looking in the red buckets where you'll find the contribution card that covers both foundations. Simply fill that out, both foundations, and turn it in with a blue envelope. Thank you so much.
Our super duper heroes. Well, they wouldn't have a job without all of you. So a big thank you to all of you who've made their contributions to both the Denver Rotary Club Foundation and the Rotary Club Foundation International. So now we are turning our thoughts to one of our longtime members, and we will have now a memorial resolution for Bill Diss. This will be presented by Fred Diss, Bill's son, and we welcome you back. Please join me here.
The resolution recites that Bill's favorite Rotary meeting was Veterans Day each year. That's not quite true. His favorite was the April Fool's meeting with Kapalki and crew every year. Fellow Rotarians and guests, we recognize today the memory of our friend and fellow Rotarian Bill Diss. Bill died in October 2014 following an extended illness. He was a member of Club 31 for 41 years, many of those years with perfect attendance. Bill was a 6-time Paul Harris Fellow and a silver level DRCF Fellow. He served on the Rotary Club Board of Directors on several committees and was a speaker as well. He enjoyed attending the club's Veterans Day program, as I stated, celebrating in uniform. This picture there. He was an active duty and reserve officer in the U.S. Army, retiring as a full colonel. But his Rotary designation was a CPA tax. Bill practiced as a CPA and attorney for almost 60 years. He was very accomplished as a tax practitioner, easier said than done, and as a professor of law at DU, where he taught for 30 years. He was a co-founder of the Graduate Tax Program at the University of Denver, a co-founder of the Denver Estate Planning Council, president of the Carter Society of CPAs. He was also active in the AICPA Tax Division, chairing the S Corporation Committee and the Estate and Gift Tax Committee. He served on the IRS Commissioners Advisory Group and the Uniform CPA Exam Board, and as editor and contributing author of the AICPA's Tax Advisor magazine, as well as several other professional tax publications. Bill was honored with the AICPA's Arthur J. Dixon Award in 1989 for his contributions to the tax profession. That's the highest award the AICPA grants nationwide in the area of taxation. He was also honored with the University of Denver Evans Award and the Professional Achievement Awards, the Regis University Alumni Achievement Award, and the Catholic Lawyers Guild Lifetime Achievement Award. Bill's pro bono activities included plan giving consulting for the University of Denver and for Regis University. He also served on the board of directors of several private foundations, including the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation and the Gallagher Family Foundation. So we express deep sympathy to Bill's wife, Minnie, their 9 children, 28 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of this resolution by a standing vote of the membership and others here present.
Thank you so much, Fred, and thank you to the family for being here today, too. Bill was one of those people that I really enjoyed being with here, and one of the first Rotarians I met when I became a member of the club, so we miss him dearly. Well, now we're turning our focus to me because I know Patty is a longtime partner. She played a significant role in helping Nine Health Fair become more visible in the news, counseling us. She was a board member for many, many years. So it's great for me to be, I feel privileged to be introducing you today, Patty. But let me give a little background. Patty Dennis is Vice President of Regional News Director now. She started off as in Oklahoma City as a studio camera person, a floor director, and a part-time janitor, apparently. She took her first producing job and moved to Dallas to produce at KDFW-TV. Patty's short-term goal was to eventually end up at KUSA-TV in Denver, and that short-term goal turned into a long-term career of more than 32 years with 9 News. She's been the newscast producer, Discovery Channel producer, executive producer, and her current role now is Vice President and News Director. As VP Regional News Director for KUSA Denver, she does a lot of recruiting for the talent across the Gannett platform in television stations around the country. In fact, she's leaving today for a trip to do just that. And we all know that she's very talented at that. She's hired as I understand, every talent person, every anchor that you see on 9 News with one exception, and that's Mark Koberg, who started just before you did. Is that correct? She was recently named the 2012 News Director of the Year by Broadcasting and Cable. In 2011, she was honored as one of the outstanding women in business by the Denver Business Journal and was a finalist for Gannett's Manager of the Year in 2012. She's been inducted into the National Television Arts and Sciences Silver Circle for her contributions in more than 25 years in broadcast excellence. In addition, Patty was presented with the 2011 Alfred DuPont Columbia Award for her team's investigative work. Under her leadership, KUSA TV has won hundreds of Emmy Awards, and currently, KUSA has won the Colorado Broadcaster Station Excellence Award 14 years in a row. She's an exercise fanatic, which I can attest to, seeing her in the workout room at 9 News. She loves to ride her bike to and from work, which is a 30-mile ride. And so we really appreciate that at 9 News and 9 Health Fair, because she lives our mission. Now, I'd like to also mention one other thing about Patty. She's a great friend. I know she's going to give you a lot of great information. And to watch her and the team at KUSA, I think I've become spoiled in my understanding of how news works. I've been able to compare this with a couple of other stations, and we're a winner. So, Patty, please come on.
Probably not. But my first question for you all, since we're going, I'm going to get myself in there. How many of you have a smartphone? Can you hold it up or hold your hand up? Are you addicted to it? Is it near you now? It's on, it vibrates. Well, I kid you not. This is kind of part of what I'm talking about. But while we were having lunch, I got an email, and pardon me for all you judges, but I suspect this will be a defense that will be introduced into court and for all you doctors and new diagnosis. But have you ever left your phone at home and felt naked without it? The feeling of separation anxiety when unable to check email, Facebook, Google. It's an actual condition called nomophobia. It came out today, kid you not. If you're battling NOMO, it may be time to start disconnecting, and then there's some tips how. So this has probably transformed not only our lives, but certainly the information business in ways that I don't know that any of us understood just a few years ago. So I want to talk a little bit about what the Gannett Company is doing, because I'm heavily involved in what we're calling the news revolution, content revolution. When you consider how people get, share, confirm, and contribute to the news process, it has changed. Watching television news or reading the newspapers, there was this dark period in your day. You would find out, read the newspapers in the morning, maybe watch a little TV, go to work, do your job, come home, check in to see what's happened, maybe with an afternoon newspaper, maybe not, certainly with an afternoon newscast. And maybe by 10 o'clock you check in again to see, well, has anything changed? Obviously that world has really sort of turned on its head. And now we don't ever lose you. But as a consumer of information, you can check it in the morning. You can have an in-car experience with news and information. You're at your desktop, you have a desktop computer. You have a tablet, a mobile phone, and it continues to grow. So we are experiencing what we're calling a news revolution. And we're working very hard to understand how the audience wants news delivered, when and where, and on what device. Some people say, journalism is at its worst place in history. When you think about all the misinformation that gets shared, when you look at Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I would argue that we may be in a better place than ever. And I've been in it long enough to at least know where we were when we had that news cycle that started in the morning and then picked up in the afternoon and before bed. Because when you think about what we covered then, it was really based on a few people in each news organization trying to figure out, this was the classic line, what are people talking about? We had reporters who would come in and tell us, but now we have this dynamic, instant, every second conversation with the public about what is going on, what is news, what's happening in your neighborhood, what you're concerned about, what you like, and what you don't like. And that has really helped us have a larger window to our world and connected us with an audience that's actually better than before. When you think about the photographs we get and the tips that we get, it's pretty amazing how we're able to move a story rather quickly. And technology has helped us. The audience fragmentation is really what I'm talking about when I say you have so many choices. All of them are good. You have ones that you trust and ones that you want to confirm, but the audience has fragmented away from we watch TV and we read the newspaper to finding areas digitally that service the needs that you have about what information you want. Make sure I got this turned on. We'll go back to that in a second. The mobile explosion we talked about, I got a report yesterday that 61% of our digital traffic at 9 News comes through a mobile device. That's not a desktop, that's not a laptop. 61% of anyone who's touching 9news.com or the 9 News mobile app, and we do about 1 million page views a day, usually a little over that. So you can think about the number of people and the number of stories that are being read. And a lot of those people pass through Facebook and Twitter to get to a 9 News product, and that happens in every city that I'm in. This has become the first screen. Television or your desktop is screens 2 and 3 in your life. And demographic changes. We have talked a lot in our industry about demographics that we would target. So forever and ever, I can remember we're targeting the 25 to 54-year-olds. Once I passed through that demographic, I was a little upset. You're not targeting me anymore? What's that about? But 25 to 54 used to be the target demo. And while it still has a play, it's really a demo about lifestyle. What is your lifestyle? There are people well into their 60s and 70s who are very technologically savvy, use and consume a lot of information, and actually still have great purchasing power. So our demographics of who we're targeting changes based on the platform that we're using, and we have to service them all. When we were just a television station, we had to produce content just for television. When we got a digital platform, which was in Denver, the 9news.com platform, we had to write and produce for that. And now we're producing for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, Vine, the 9news mobile app. All of those are sort of changing our workflow and information. And then niche programming. How many of you are binge watchers? Do you binge watch anything? I want to be, I still don't know how, but I want to be a binge watcher, I've decided. I think that my kids tell me that's a cool thing to do. But niche programming is now becoming really the focus of a lot of program developers. For example, NBC is going to experiment later this year, I think it's in the early part of the summer, with a program called Aquarius. And they're going to release the entire season series on Hulu or one of the over-the-top on-demand devices, and at the same time release it week by week on the NBC network. It'll be a real interesting experiment to see if binge watching early creates long watching later, so that people would still watch the episodes later during the summer. Real-time news, here's the kind of breakthrough, and I'll tell you the moment it was the aha for me. It was the, I should have had a BA. We were in a meeting with the Denver Broncos about our contract with them, and Joe Ellis, the president of the Denver Broncos, said, "We don't need you to break our news anymore. We'll break our own news." And it was like, yeah, that's right.
They do, because they have digital assets. Everybody can publish. So the Denver Broncos, the Denver Police Department, and just, you can name anything, you can break your own news. You can publish. What our job is, we feel, is to vet that information, put it into some kind of context, and deliver it back with a lot of voices and a lot of sort of filtering through what was true, what was political agenda, that kind of thing. User-generated content, talked about pictures and video and photos. When there's a snowstorm in Denver, you've probably seen Kyle Clark or Maine Acre make fun of the patio furniture because nobody wants to go really outside to take a picture. So they look out their back window. But we will get slammed with pictures. But the same is true with any other kind of accident or public concern. We are always getting user-generated content, which helps us actually cover things that we couldn't otherwise get to. That's why I think we're in a better place to cover more news than ever before. And then news tips, quietly and confidentially, we get a lot of information asking us to check things out, and we feel like that's a big part of our job, is to be a watchdog for this community, to make sure that people in positions of authority and leadership and influence are using that for the public in the right way. So what is news? Maybe this is where our company, and I think our industry, is going through the biggest shakedown. I think we know that, investigative journalism is still news. I think we know that when some big event, train derailment in Pittsburgh happens or Philadelphia happens, we know that's big news. But there are so many things that have become news because of the social engagement. How many of you followed is it a gold dress or is it a purple dress? Do you remember that story a couple months ago? That became significantly news based on the technology and how it was shared. And 10 years ago, nobody would be talking about whether a dress was gold or purple, but that has become news. And what another report that came out just this week was sort of the differences between generations of what they want. And I don't think that the boomers and the Gen X surprises me a lot, but the millennial stuff, that's the order, and that's the next generation of news consumers moving into adulthood. And when you think about what's important to them, they've grown up on Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, now John Oliver, Jimmy Fallon, Saturday Night Live. There's a new show called Vice on HBO, and they all are a little bit like news, but kind of off news, a little more commentary. But that's what the younger generation right now has grown up seeing. So what is news? We're having to redefine what stories are news, what information is news, and how to present it, and on which platform, and at what time. I saw a newspaper presentation right before I came over here today, and the newspaper has on the wall, digital first, newspaper completes. And that's what they're teaching their journalists, is like, you've got to be digital first, and then when the newspaper comes out, it completes the story. And that's sort of the way television is working as well. It's digital first information, and the completion of the story and the conversation about the story can happen all day long, and then that televised broadcast story can kind of wrap it up in a bow, is how we're looking at it. And then lastly, just for display, really, is delivery platforms have changed so profoundly. About 2 years ago, we were talking about first screen and second screen experience. And we did a strategic plan that talked about first screen experience is the television, right? They're getting bigger, they're incredible, they show incredible pictures, they do incredible things. And in fact, we build rooms around them. It's not like television viewing is going away, but the information that people are getting is actually happening in their hands or their laps first. And our whole paradigm shift of whether television is a first screen or this is a first screen has changed. This is actually your first screen. How many of you use your device as an alarm clock? I know I do. And I've had an alarm clock for years, but I don't know, sometime in the last 2 or 3 years, this became my alarm clock. And what usually happens is people start to look at information immediately. You wake up, you're kind of checking in, how did the world do? Did anything blow up? Are we still here? And then they're moving into other areas of content distribution, morning television, etc. Tablets, we know, are a second screen experience, but phablet is what I think we would call the iPhone 6. Anybody have an iPhone 6? It's bigger than the other iPhones, right? And it's combination between the tablet and the phone. So there's the phablet name we're calling it. The iPhone watch. Anybody have a watch? Anybody get a smartwatch? You're waiting for that, all the bugs to be worked out. I don't know. I look at that and go, I don't know if I can look at my computer that small. But trust me, people were standing in line. You had to order these. This will evolve into what's being called wearable glass. And wearable glass will be in whatever form, and maybe on your wrist, I don't know, maybe it'll be on your clothes. I'm not really sure how it'll all develop. But you will be never disconnected from information if that's what you choose. So wearable glass, I think, is going to be a new challenge for us. How do we produce something that's interesting, visual, compelling, for a screen that's the size that fits on your wrist? And at the same time produce something that's interesting, relevant, watchable for a 80-inch plasma screen, LCD screen in your living room. So it's been quite the challenge to have all these platforms. Also been quite the opportunity for us to not lose an audience and to have that constant electronic conversation with what's going on in all of our communities. And in that last image, and I put a question mark, in car. If you have a newer vehicle, you probably have some sort of navigation system in it. It has a screen, and we know they put TVs and movies in the back seat. But there is quickly developing in-car email, texting. It'll all be voice activated. It will help you stay connected with information that you want. An in-car experience, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, maybe the NTSB needs to figure that out before they get produced and sold in car dealerships. But that's another one of the new platforms, and we will want, as journalists and as broadcasters, we're going to want to have a place and a say in that kind of communicating with our audience. So I'm really encouraged, even though we are going through massive amount of change. Our biggest challenge really is that things that were traditionally called news have less meaning. For whatever reason, our industry, once we got live, we could go live, and that was like in the mid to late 70s. We started covering things because we could and not because we should. So that means every house fire got covered and every car accident got covered and those kinds of things. And it made it very easy to turn information rather quickly. Whether that's still news in the 21st century and in 2015, I would argue it may not be. There needs to be other contextual information about that car accident or that house fire. Otherwise, we all live in much, much, much too cluttered environments to care about something that happened halfway across town. So we're really going through a lot of change and transformation in terms of content. We are looking at all the technologies, knowing that they're going to help us serve the public. And when Jim introduced your four-way test, I thought that was pretty appropriate for our industry. Some of you might not believe it, but I believe it to be true. That we ask ourselves often, is it true? I mean, we get a lot of misinformation. You can imagine people love to send us things that either are part of their own agenda or things they've heard but can't confirm. So our questions are, is it true? We ask that quite often, and our reputation and credibility is at stake if it's not. We always say, being first is great, but first and wrong is still wrong. So keep that in mind. Is it fair to all? That's a good question for us to continue to ask. And when you say to all, you argue, well, if you're going after someone on an investigative piece that was dishonorable or misleading the public, I think it is fair to all to hold people accountable. Your other question, would it build goodwill and better friendships? I'm not exactly sure that fits in ours, because sometimes it doesn't build a lot of goodwill. But we're all about building better communities. We live here and we care very deeply about the health of this community. So that's what local journalists can do, continue that. It will be beneficial to all. I think it will be beneficial to most when we do a story. We'd like it to be beneficial to all, but to most. So that's kind of the state of our business. I wish I could tell you we have the answers. I'm headed out today to go talk about some of this in one of our markets, and I'm on a giant project with the whole company working on content transformation. Who are we going to be in the next 10 years, in the next 2 years, really, as technology continues to outpace us? I'd be happy to take questions.
We do. Before we start the questions, I had an interesting experience. It was early on in my career with 9 Health Fair, and I had the opportunity, even though we're a separate organization, to listen in on some of the conversations that happened at 9 News. I wonder if you could relay, in relation to Is It the Truth, what's going on, the breaking story and how the Balloon Boy sequence played out.
I owned the Balloon Boy.
It was fascinating.
I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, you know what? I actually, so that was when I was running the newsroom. So let me give you the quick scenario. I was in my office doing a review on one of our staff members, and another gentleman in our organization came in, and he like opened the door. I'm like, I'm in a review, and he goes, I have a guy on the phone who says his son is flying away on a big balloon. I'm like, what? He goes, his son is flying away in a big balloon. And I'm like, hang on. So, not traditional in my role, I walked out in the newsroom, and I said, where is it? He goes, he's not on the phone now. And I said, do you have his number? And he goes, he wants us to launch the helicopter to search for him. I said, give me the guy's number. So I called him. And I said, I need to talk to Richard Heaney. And he said, this is Richard. And he was like, I said, Patty did this and I do. So you want us to launch the helicopter for what? And he goes, my son is flying away in a hot air balloon. It's a balloon I built. I said, why isn't he in school? And he goes, he's out for a in-service day. And I started using all my little diagnostics. I'm like, okay, what school does he go to? Give me the cross street the school is on. Then I asked him, why don't you call the police? And he said, there's a deputy here in my house. And I'm like, put him on the phone. So I get him on the phone, and I said, what's your name? What's your badge number? What's your supervisor's name? I need a phone number. And we ended up hanging up. And when I talked to the deputy was very nice. Do we have a boy missing in a balloon? And he said, yes, ma'am, I think we do. And I looked at the newsroom, and I'm like, let's go. So about the same time, the sheriff's office in Larimer County, the PIO, confirmed it to another person in our newsroom who was making separate calls. So now we have 2 people telling us we have a boy missing in a balloon. So we feel like that's our responsibility. So we launch, and if any of you saw it, it took us about almost 30 minutes to find the little dot in the sky. But anyway, the rest of that story, of course, is now history. And Richard Heaney's in Florida. God knows what he's building now. But that really was, and I was pretty proud of our process. I mean, as much as we were all duped by Richard Heaney, the law enforcement felt like we had a missing boy, and we felt like that's part of our job as journalists in this community to report that. So that was our process. Yeah, just loud.
I'm concerned about the financial strength of media today. The pressures, particularly at the local level, but I think the negative impact is larger at the national level, i.e. networks that will revere the financial resources put into quality news reporting at the national level. Same too with the primary print media at the national level. As a result, I don't think we have the strength of investigative reporting, particularly at the federal level, that we need as a democratic society. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. So the question is about finances for national media and local media. I'm obviously more familiar with the finances of local media, but I think the one thing that newspaper didn't do, and I'm a newspaper fan, was evaluate workflow and process when the world started to change. And so the process of having 2 or 3 editors going over scripts is all well and fine, but the world changed, and I think the process had to change. There was a process that was built, it was sort of archaic, or it certainly couldn't be supported financially. At the network level, for broadcast, most of the networks have agreements with local affiliates, and so we work as a kind of a giant network. So let's just take NBC. NBC has its own correspondents and all of its bureaus, and of course its operations in New York. But it also has more than 220 affiliates across the country in every city where that affiliation is working together. So there's more sharing going on than there was maybe in the past, and more relying on each other to produce content. And then from a local level, our business is very much trying to figure out how to get a strong revenue stream from those digital products, because it still costs money to do journalism. You have to pay people to go dig. So we're working a lot on our digital revenue ideas and environment as much as we're working on the television side. But I agree that investigative journalism has taken probably the biggest hit. There's a lot of local broadcasters who do not want to spend the money on it. It takes money. For example, the investigative unit at 9 News has 6 people in it. And on any given day, they may not be turning anything. Yet we do 9 hours of live news, plus the digital platforms, plus the social platforms. So it's not like we can let 6 people just not produce today, but you have to if you're going to do investigative work. It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. And for newspapers, I think even more so.
Thanks for coming, Benny. The slide that you had about what the different generations consider news is very troubling to me. Tablemate Peter agreed. Do people move through those categories? I'm very concerned with the millennials. I mean, that list, it's all entertainment. I'm a baby boomer, so I'm at the top. I believe in that. My kids don't read the newspaper. They don't watch TV news. I don't think they really get a good, broad information. That's very troubling to me.
I don't know that we know. Certainly I don't know. But I think when you think about the 20 or maybe even 30-somethings, 30 years ago, not heavy consumers of local news, no real tie, they may not own property, not invested in the infrastructure of the city they live in. So I'm hopeful that they grow into it, more concerned about what's going on in their own world in terms. But on the other hand, information flows so fast, and that entertainment part, for me, it's not just entertainment news like Entertainment Tonight. It is how entertaining is the news. So you think about a Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert or a John Oliver, they're talking about today's events, but they're doing it in a humorous, sometimes very comedic way. So if that's the way we reach a different generation with important information, we may have to, that may be part of our, how interesting is it? Are you making it interesting? Are we producing it differently so that it's more engaging? So I'm hopeful. I think my kids know a lot, but I don't know that they're interested in school board issues right now. They're just not connected to that world yet. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for being here. Great job. In my home, Channel 9 is the preferred channel for watching.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. That's part of the deal. Everyone has to swear. Now, what oath can we say? There's got to be an oath that you have to be a Channel 9 viewer from this point forward. Okay, go ahead.
So, my wife has got it open on her computer before she has a morning tea. But with all the information that's out there, and the volume of information, and the ways in which we see it, how do you stay personally current yourself?
I live on this. I really do. And I think for me, and I think if you think about it, it's so much faster to work digitally. So my social accounts keep me up to date. I follow all the major networks, the local news organizations, so that I think I know now more than I used to. It can be overwhelming. There are times where you're like, make it stop, there's too much going on. But that's how I stay up, is I'm app crazy, I'm an app addict. And it's my job, so part of it is my job. But that's how I personally stay up. And every now and then I really like watching a show like a 60 Minutes or something where I can just kind of relax and just tell me, instead of me having to hunt for it.
I've always been a news junkie, and I'm not sure at what point I quit watching Peter Jennings, but it was before he got sick. And I started watching Channel 9 and Brian Williams and so forth. And one thing my wife and I are talking about is we talk about the entertainment news. It seems like the entertaining news started off not making fun of the news, but making fun of how the news was covered, because it wasn't very serious. And my wife and I, she was telling me last night that we see more important news stories from HBO, from the John Olivers, who essentially blew the lid off the Miss American pageant. And the HBO documentary that did what 20 years of law enforcement couldn't do and almost got a guy to get murdered. He was in the bathroom urinal. And I know that the Jon Stewarts and now the Stephen Colberts, that they're funny, but it's not funny in an insulting way. It's very thoughtful, and it's very intelligent. And I'm just wondering, it just seems like more and more the entertaining news is actually providing more news, even though it is funny. It's not enough funny content. And that's where a lot of people, I don't think HBO started off thinking they're going to go into investigative journalism, but they might want a couple Pulitzers this year.
Right.
And at the same time, it seems like Channel 9, also the news business, is having a hard time with investigative journalism. I imagine that has to be frustrating.
It is, but here's what's interesting. First of all, it's the people that we're hiring, and that's part of my new job is as a recruiter to really go out and look for maybe not the traditional, I'm an anchor man, I've been at the anchor desk for 10 years. So, when you talk about people being smart, it's intelligent writing, it's clever, it's informative. That's kind of where our industry has sort of realized we got into a formula of two people at a desk, and they switch off reading stories, and interestingly enough, most of our producers are fairly young, somewhere in the, let's say, 25 to 45 range. And it's weird. They live in this digital whirlwind when they're outside the building, and they come into any one of our 46 television stations, and they start producing a show like their daddy used to watch. And it's like we are trying to break them and produce a smart, clever, intelligent newscast. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Kyle Clark. I admit I hired him, but he is one of the most intelligent, he might be the most intelligent, clever writer that I have ever worked with. And I would tell you there are many markets in the country that would love to have him, but we're not letting him go. If I have anything to do with it.
Back in the day, when a broadcaster had one audience of 1 million people all watching the television, the advertising-based revenue model worked. Now you've got 1 million audiences of one person each watching on 1 million different platforms. How do you make money?
Well, believe it or not, there's still a pretty good business in the television revenue model. So that hasn't been completely blown up. Because at the end of the day, most people will tell you, if any of you are business owners and have ever done any advertising, there's still an ability to have an emotional connection with your audience on a way in television that's not necessarily always true with digital. I mean, I don't know how many of you access a story or a site online and an ad pops up, and my first reaction is, ugh, I didn't watch it. I mean, I can't wait till the little thing comes up to say skip. But, so there's still that. On the other hand, we are trying to find ways to build a toolkit for advertisers so that they can use more than just television. It's kind of a whole complement, a buffet of how do you reach your audience. Because ultimately that's what it's about, is helping business people reach their audiences with the platforms that we have. So there's a lot of discussion about digital revenue, there's a lot of discussion about social, and there's a lot of discussion outside of the news about product placement. So you will see more and more entertainment programming where either subtly or directly product placement will show up in those shows, and that's huge for a lot of advertisers to have their product used at the time that it's being talked about, or so we're looking at all of those. So that's kind of our approach to it. There's still a really good business. As I said, people are watching more television than ever before. They're just doing it with multiple devices. So that's how we're approached it. Did that help?
Thank you very much. What does the future hold in store for Brian Williams?
Well, I'm not in the inner circle, although I have very good contacts at NBC. A lot has been written about Brian. I think Brian is a natural storyteller, and the scary part about that is, you sort of can't let the facts get in the way of a good story. And I'd be surprised if he comes back. That's just my opinion. I have no authority to say that. I think I'd be very surprised. I think it's what I talked about before. It's got to be the truth. If it's not the truth, your credibility is one thing that doesn't really get restored very easily. So I'd be surprised. I think that announcement will come out rather soon.